Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is a very special one. We're going to dupe the vibes of the newest Dieverune Cosmetics Gloomy Gardens palette. So I duped the vibes in this empty magnetic pan palette, and you guys be the judge and tell me. I feel like I did a very good job. And I really love the way how this turned out. The only shade that you might see is a little off is this shade. That is because it has like a strong purple shift to it, but I feel instead of that shade I do have another option if you do not own if you do not want to use that shade. But I feel like rest everything falls right in place if you do have Simply Posh Cosmetics palettes. All that I used was Simply Posh Cosmetics palette, and I feel like we're very close to it. I'm going to create two looks using this palette, and I'm going to tell you all the shade names when I swatch it. So if you're ready, let's begin. Let's go column by column. The first shade is the only shade that was not used from the Simply Posh Cosmetics palette, just because that's the only, they do not have like a grungy green shade in their collection. I used this from the Twisted Tea Party from SmithySony Cosmetics. The second shade is from the Aurora Lights palette, and the third shade is from the Fairytales Fairies palette. So let me tell you the names while I swatch it. So this is SmithySony's Twisted Tea Party Teacup shade. The next one is Captivate from the Aurora Lights palette. And the third shade is Sparkles from the Fairytales Fairies palette from Simply Posh Cosmetics. So those are the first three shades of the first column. Now Simply Posh Cosmetics shimmers, they apply very nicely on the eyes, but with the finger swatch it might feel a little dry to the touch, but I feel like that is a plus point to me just because it doesn't crease on me at all, but rest of like the emollient shimmers do crease on me just because I do have like an oily eyelid. Now let's move on to the second column. So first is Surreal from the Aurora Lights palette, and then we have Phenomena also from Aurora Lights palette, and then we have Angel from the Cozy Cabin palette. So let's watch that. So vibrant. And this is more of like a muted blue but with like a gray in it, and this Angel shade has a ton of sparkles running throughout it. It's more of like a green base with a ton of blue and purple shimmers running throughout it. So that's the second column. A lot of the shades are from Aurora Lights palette. Let's move on to the third column. Now the third column is all from the Cozy Cabin palette from Simply Posh Cosmetics. The first shade is called Tradition. The second shade is called Stocking. And the third shade is called Festive. If you know the Cozy Cabin palette, it's the first column of that palette. So let's watch that. So vibrant. There you go. Oh my god. The last shade is called Festive. As I said, it's going to look like a lot toppery, but on the eyes, it shifts like very beautifully. So that's the third column. Now let's move on to the fourth column of this palette. Now the fourth column is all from the Berry Icy palette. This shade is called Tart. This shade is called Fruity. And this shade is called Delicious. All from the Berry Icy palette. So let's watch that. I love a Berry Icy palette, seriously, because of the purpley tones. Yeah, no surprise there. And they're amazing. These on the eyes are stunning. There you go. Just stunning. And that is the fourth column swatched for you guys. Look how stunning it is. It's amazing. Love it. Now let's move on to the last column of the palette. So the first shade, I used a black. It looks like a brown, deep dark brown in their palette, but I used the shade Night Sky from the Aurora Lights palette. The second shade is Sleigh Bells from the Cozy Cabin palette. And the third shade I used was Aurora from the Aurora Lights palette. But I'll give you another shade for this particular shade. night sky, sleigh bells. Such an amazing shade selection. And this is Aurora from the Aurora Lights palette. So that is the last column swatched for you guys too. Now I feel in the swatches it's very difficult to say what that last shade is going to look like, but I also feel if you do have the Unearthly Cosmetics Don't Be Jelly palette, I feel it is more similar to Hydrospace, this one, because it does have like several shifts like this shade. And let me swatch it for you guys. Like, look at that. I feel this would be more apt. So I'm just gonna swatch that. But it's similar in a swatch. But this is the entire palette swatched for you guys. You guys let me know how I did in duping the vibes section. And if you do have all these palettes, or if you do have other palettes in the collection, try and dupe the vibes. Especially if you're not a colorful wearer like me, I feel these have been done very, very nicely, where it is colorful, but it is also neutral at the same time. You can definitely play a lot with the colors as well as more of the muted tones, because it's muted but colorful at the same time. I love the addition of this muted row, but also with the punchy row too. And these duochromes, definitely duochromes, multichromes, whatever it is, it definitely adds a little bit of flair to it. I really, really love it. Now let's move on to the eye looks using this palette. Okay, time for some eye looks. And I cannot wait to dive into this palette. Today we're gonna play with some oranges, maybe that black, and maybe one of the other shimmers too. I'm going to office, so I don't want to like be all crazy out. I'll be crazy like in tomorrow's look. But let's start. I'm gonna start with this shade. I'm gonna start with this shade. It's like a yellow orangey, like a muted orange shade. And this is from that Cozy Cabin palette. I'm gonna start on the crease area, just like that. Now I'm gonna dip into that orangey shade, the punchy orange. I'm gonna focus that on the outer corners and then melt it with that yellow orange shade that we applied in the inner third, just like that. And I don't want to leave the outer corner, like the extreme outer corner, extremely orange. So I'll just deepen it out with another shade. Now once we have that, just taking the previous brush that we used that yellow thing with, yellow shade with, and just blend the edges, just so that the transition is smooth. Now for the extreme outer corners, I'm gonna dip into this shade, this green shade, and just place it right there, just for a little depth. And because we are placing that on top of that orange, it will not be like green, but it will definitely give some depth. Just a tad bit. I'm not looking for anything dramatic, just a tad bit. I'm going to take that same green on my lower lash line, just in the outer corners, and take that yellow that we applied in the beginning, and then place that in the inner third of the lower lash line. My eyes are watering. Just right there. And in the center, just to mend both of those together, I'm going to take a little bit of that orange and then just melt it right there. Just right there. Let me finish off the lid with some glitter glue, NYX glitter glue, and I'll get right back. Now I'm going to start off with this shade and then blend it down with this shade. These two. Even this green would be amazing. Oh my god. Okay, let's take these two. This first, I'm going to take that purpley shade, which has that blue base, blue greeny base. I'm going in the outer corners but that's definitely not the star of the show. I don't want it to be a purple look. Is this one? Maybe the next one is. Cannot guarantee that, but you can see that green coming through. It has a beautiful shift. It's like purple, blue, green. And we can go over the outer corners in just a minute. I'm just gonna wipe my brush. I'm gonna dip into this shade, this orangey greeny shade, and that would be the star of the show. Look on my eyes, it looks so green, but it has a strong orange flip. Just melting it down with that purpley green shade. Right there. I love it, love it. Going back into that green shade just for the outer corners, just to deepen it up a tad bit more. Just right there. So that's my first eye look. Let me finish off this eye with some liner and mascara and I'll get right back. I'm going to finish off the inner corners with this shade, Hydrospace from Unearthly. And this just ties and everything together. And that is my final eye look. I really love the cozy vibes that I'm getting from this. And you guys don't need to spend everything, especially if you do have those Simply Posh Cosmetics palettes. Like, you can see it for yourself. I am loving this. Okay, now let's move on to the next eye look. For you, it is in a minute. For me, it's tomorrow. Bye guys. Let's start off with the second eye look, and we definitely have to play with the blues and purples because my eyes are waiting for them. So let's see where we land because oh my god, it's so pretty, you guys. It's so pretty. Okay. Let's start off with this shade, this tealy blue shade. I'm gonna place that right there in the inner corners. Just taking a different route. I just want to play with maximum colors and just show you what all we can do with it. So I'm just gonna place it right there. That's not even, but that's okay. We're not gonna judge each other, okay? Remember. And then let's take a bigger, fluffier brush with this blue shade, the sky blue shade, and then just blend the edges. This is also a bigger brush than what I'm looking for. So let's take another brush, just a more fluffier brush. Yeah. And I'm just gonna blend everything out where the blue is. Definitely outside my comfort zone with these blues and teals. We'll see where we land, okay? That I look crazy. Now, for the outer corners, I'm gonna take this shade and I'm gonna build it right there and then melt it with that tealy blue shade. Okay, just melting it together. In my head it makes sense. I don't know, you guys. We'll see. Automatically I'm drawn to these shades more than blues, so just wanted to incorporate both of these together and see. Okay, once we have that, I'm going to take that same shade on my lower lash line too, the deeper purple shade. Now I'm going to just wipe off the same fluffy brush and just dip into this shade, the lighter purple, and just blend the edges of the purple shade. I like that. Of course, Smithy would like that. Anything purple you love. Just blending everything out. I'm just gonna intensify the deeper purple too. Just there in the outer corners. But don't you worry, I'm gonna deepen it out a tad bit more with that black. I'm gonna take that same fluffy brush with that black shade and just go over the extreme outer corners and just blend it across and that would give us the depth that we are looking for. Look at that. That immediately gave me the depth. Going back and forth with that black and that deeper purple just to melt everything together. I'm going to put some NYX glitter glue right in the bare portion of the eyelid, and I'll get right back. Okay, I'm going to start off with this shade, this purpley shade, with a ton of blue sparkles running throughout it. And I feel that is the best shade to put right here all across the eyelid, because that would just tie both of these things together. So I'm just gonna place that, overlapping both the shades, just on the entire eyelid, just like that. And for the inner corner, I'm gonna take this green shade, this a glowy green shade, and place that right there. I love how everything turned out. In the beginning, I was like, what the hell is this? Let me finish off this eye with some liner and mascara. And that's my second eye look. I really love the way how this eye turned out. It's super colorful, super outside my comfort zone, but also with that pop of purple with those blues, I feel like I made it my own. Obviously, this is a deep, dark, smoky eye, but let's move on to the color story of the packaging, because I feel like the colors that were chosen in this palette were absolutely beautiful. If this is your color story, then no matter if you dupe the palette or if you buy the original palette, you are absolutely gonna love it. I am hearing so many good things about Dieverune Cosmetics, and the Gloomy Garden palette really speaks out to me. Really speaks out to me, because that color story really speaks out to me. That's why I wanted to dupe it. But I had to pull myself back, because I do have so many palettes in my collection, and I've already crossed my threshold in January and February alone to buy the number of palettes. You know how much I'm like eyeing myself. I'm pushing myself to get into that threshold of like 10 to 12 palettes a year. I've already bought like 4 or 5 palettes, and it's just February. So I have to hold myself back, and I know there are PRs that are coming to my collection which have the similar color story. So I'm gonna hold myself back because colors is what like matters, and if you do have that color story, I personally love to dupe my collection. But that's all for today, guys. Let's move on to the outro. I really hope that you guys enjoyed my duping this palette. I really loved and had fun duping this palette. If you do want to see more duping videos on my channel, do subscribe to my channel before leaving and ring the notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. You guys let me know out of the 2 looks which one was your favorite. But until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.